What's up, everybody? Clinton Fauché here, and
I'm Albert Chavez.
And this is Front Porch Chronicles. And this week we have on a big timer, Miranda Fear the Maverick. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. Know you're an amazing entrepreneur, fighter. I told Albert, is there anything that she doesn't do?
Hey, I can't do anything to do with music. So no
karaoke.
So don't add you on the karaoke team. I got you.
Please don't. I'd probably cry of embarrassment before I went up there, even though I fight in front of thousands.
I love it. So you actually had a birthday last week. How'd you end up celebrating?
We didn't. My friends and my husband actually put together a little trip a couple weeks ago where we went to the zoo and just had like an outdoorsy fun day when I could still eat a little bit. So that was nice. And, we'll have some good food after my fight. But I haven't really celebrated my birthday in a long time. But it was still good, a great day, and got in some hard training just like always on Mondays.
Awesome. Well, we know you're the proud owner of Prowler Pickles, High Stakes Honey. Also, Maverick Masterpieces. Have you always been an entrepreneur? Is that something from?
I guess you'd say so. I started the pickles and the honey recently. Like the pickles started in December, so I never really had my own business from that perspective. But I did have fearthemaverick.com for a while. I make all my shirt designs and started that ever since I turned pro, basically. And I actually started my art business when I was 11. I got the LLC and everything. So my parents really helped me with that. We kind of found out spontaneously that I could draw good. I always knew I was like decent. Like the kids that come and show their parents, like, oh look, I drew a horse, or whatever. But never that realistic. And then I had a project at school, and it was to draw a self-portrait, and you could trace the outline, but the whole thing was to try to learn shading. Yeah. And I ended up not tracing at all and made a picture that looked just like myself and brought it home. And my dad was like, holy crap, you did that. And I was like, yeah, I did. And he was like, do it again. And so I drew someone else and then someone else and started selling them. So there's a few people in the US somewhere around here that have my drawings from when I was 11 and 12 for like $5-10.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
It's crazy because I was talking about my 7-year-old daughter. You remind me a lot of her. She's the same way, like the entrepreneur, especially now hearing about you were 11 years old when you first started. I was telling Albert, like, she's like the type, she's got this big box up under her bed of candy and stuff. And she'll try to trade you. I'll be like, hey, she was like, hey, can you get me some new shoes? And I'm like, okay, well, we just bought shoes. She was like, I'll tell you what. I've got a pack under here of Snickers. Will you trade me some Snickers for some new shoes? And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever.
It's like teach them bargaining power. Anyway.
She is.
So I actually got sent to the office when I was 8, I think it was, at school, because do you know those little sewing things, the little plastic, like
the sewing kits? Yeah.
So I used to make little purses and bookmarks with people's names on them and stuff, and I'd sell them at school for like $3, $5, $10, even to the teachers, which were all cool with it. But I guess because my enterprise got around the school and to the principal, like I got sent to the principal and they were like, you cannot be selling stuff at school. And I was like, boo. Like, why not?
Well, you would think that they would be like, hey, that's really cool to have that type of, but Debbie Downer on them. So we got the pickles. We actually tried them probably an hour before we came. I went with the spicy pickles is what we went.
Which one was it? Was it the spicy dill or the spicy garlic?
Spicy dill. Okay. I didn't want to go with the garlic just because I didn't want my breath to be tart today.
But I might smell it through the phone.
You see what I'm saying? I didn't want you talking about me being like, dude, he had a mullet and his breath stinks. So, but I loved them. They had the perfect, they got a 10 out of 10 for me. They had a perfect hint of spice, but it wasn't overwhelming like I was going to be in the bathroom all day. It got a 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I got a turkey sandwich calling my name when we're done. So I'm gonna have to put them on
There you
there.
So for the people listening, if you guys are interested, go to prowlerpickles.com. It has my honey on there and my pickles, even though it's called the pickle website. Started the honey just a couple weeks ago. So getting those all done, you can get party packs even. Like if you have a baby shower or birthday or something you want honey themed or bee themed, I can make that happen. But yeah, started that. If you guys keep an eye on my social media for them, you'll see code Independence. You can use 20% off right now until the 12th ahead of my fight. So that'll be exciting. And I have 11 flavors of the pickles, from like spiciest down to like the sweetest version of pickles.
Definitely. We also used the code Independence because I ordered the pickles. I've got the honey at the house. It actually came in today. I got the variety pack. So we're going to do a review. We're also going to have all of the links for Prowler's Pickles, the honey, everything down below whenever we post this, as well as your social media, so everybody can go on there and get their orders in, get it while it's hot.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
So we wanted to kind of kick it back in your backstory a little bit. Where are you originally from?
So I'm originally from Missouri, was born in like the Jefferson City area. My family now lives in more of the Springfield area. Not technically, I guess more like the Ozarks. We're kind of in between them in a little town called Tunis. You'd miss it if you didn't look up and see the one stop sign that's there. But I love it. It's out on the ranch. My dad has property out there where we raise beef cattle, and I've bought some property attached to it. My brother and his wife actually live in my house in Missouri, so they're keeping it warm for me. You know?
Sure, well maintained.
Yeah, exactly. But that's where I'll be eventually when I decide to settle down.
Is that where the pickle endeavor came from? Did you learn how to like farm and do all the irrigation from when you were younger?
Yeah, so basically we gardened, we had our own beef, we had our own chickens, we had our own eggs, we milked our own cows. Like I grew up homesteading with food. We hardly even went to the grocery store for anything beyond carbs, basically. You know? But yeah, learned to vacuum seal, learned to can things, learned to butcher animals, like all of it. So it's been a great I guess learning experience as I've gotten older to do it more myself. Now that my parents have stopped doing it so much because the kids are basically out of the house, you know, we kind of take over those responsibilities. And the pickles basically came from me doing like a Christmas present to the family. I was bringing a bunch of pickles and other canned items back home, and I made an Instagram story about it. And I had a few people that were like, would you sell a jar of pickles? And had several people ask. And so then I made like the hypothetical post of, hey, if I started this business, who would buy from me? And got tons of positive answers back within 30 minutes, an hour. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to give this a go. And if it fails, it fails. If it works, it works. I always tell people I'm the biggest quitter you'll ever meet. I've started more businesses and quit more businesses than ever. And one of these days, one will take off. And so far, the pickles and the honey have been doing great. And I'm in a couple stores and I'm trying to just work my way up. I got to have something when I'm old or get hurt, whichever one comes first.
So, speaking on that, then when you said getting old or getting hurt, how did you start your MMA journey then?
Yeah, so long story with that. I guess there's a lot of avenues to that as well. So someone in my family was sexually assaulted when they were young, and my dad basically was like, this shit won't happen to one of my children, you know? And so raised us to learn self-defense. Like we would literally watch UFC in the living room, get on YouTube and watch jujitsu videos. And the main focus was jujitsu, and not like most families where you just play around and wrestle and goof off. Like we were legitimately learning the moves, like watching and pausing and going back and learning how to do arm bars and how to do rear naked chokes and how to get up from the ground and like all kinds of stuff when I was young. And we'd probably do an hour a day, I'd say. And of course it was playful, you know, all three of us kids against dad, that kind of thing. But as we got older, you know, we were learning for real, like the basics. So when I was 16, I asked my dad, I was like, you know, I think I'd really like to try this jujitsu thing, like see if I'm any good and maybe compete a little bit and just get to where I know I can handle myself when I go off to college and stuff like that and feel safe. And he was like, all right, find a way to pay for it. So him and my brother actually helped me chop wood, and we sold firewood for my first few months of gym fees. And that's kind of the story there. I drove an hour and 15 minutes to get to my first gym, but they had a juvenile class because I was really uncomfortable rolling with men in that close contact sport. at first, and the juvenile class gave me an opportunity to at least be going with boys my same age, so that helped. But went in there and was whooping their butts within a couple weeks, not even kidding. Like, I already knew the basics, and these other kids, most of them knew nothing. Maybe a couple wrestled a little bit, and I was just like, wow, you guys suck. Like, this is terrible. And so I asked him, I was like, I'd like to compete. And the coach was like, oh, we don't compete at this gym. And I was like, yeah, bye. And so
Yeah.
I left right away and ended up going to Springfield Fight Club, which is where I pursued my MMA career. Basically started with them as an amateur and left as a pro so that I could go pursue grad school. But I still didn't want punched in the face. I was doing jiu-jitsu for a while, and I didn't decide to do MMA until I watched these two amateur women fight. And it was a super embarrassing fight. Like, there was one punch and it was done, like a soccer mom versus an athlete. And I was like, I was like, I could do better than that. And my coaches were like, you've never been punched in the face. You never know. And I was like, listen, I've been kicked by a cow. Like, I'll be all right. Like, this will be fine. And so, told myself if I won the fight and I liked it, I'd go be the best I could be. And had my first amateur fight, won by submission in the first round in like a minute and 14 seconds, I think. And the rest is kind of history.
So speaking of ODU and college, we had one of your old classmates, Chris McCate, a good friend of ours, came on. And when I reached out to him, he, number one, said, I'm not surprised she's in the UFC because she's always been a beast. But he spoke about this farm bar. What is up with this farm bar? I'm kind of scared of it.
So Chris actually was a teammate out there. It was pretty cool that he was at ODU. He was one of my main training partners, even though he's a lot bigger than me, but always gave a good push. As far as farm bar, so obviously I grew up on a ranch, but a lot of people just refer to it as a farm. And for me, when I was younger, especially in my amateur years and beginning of my pro, I did a lot of arm bars. If you go and look at my finishes, as far as my fights, I think I had 6 armbar finishes out of 9 fights in my amateur career. And then in my pro career, my first 5 wins, I think 3 or 4 of them were arm bars. So I kind of got granted this farm bar because, especially against girls, I'm a lot stronger than them usually, especially at those stages. Now we're getting to such a high level. We're all pretty strong. We're all pretty athletic. But at those stages, there were a lot of girls that I would just be like, no, I want your arm. And out of it, I'd just like grab it and pull it from anywhere. I'd be in guard and get the arm bars. I'd be in mount and get the arm bars. I'd do flying arm bars, like all of it. So everybody was like, well, it's Miranda. She can just do a farm bar from anywhere.
Do it from across the United States.
Look on my website. I actually have like hoodies and rash guards that have like the farm bar logo on them with like barbed wire down the sleeve.
That is epic. I'm gonna have to get one now just because. A mullet and a farm bar hoodie, I would be certified.
Yeah, it's like it has that on the front, and then on the back it says like they call me Maverick. So that's more old school. A lot of my own generation don't know. Maybe you guys don't know either because it's really old, but an old Western TV show called Maverick that then made born the new movie Maverick, if you've seen it. Like, that's what it's from, is an old TV show where Brett Maverick and all them played on it. And so the theme song is like They Call Me Maverick, so it's pretty cool.
I grew up, my uncle, I know the show Maverick because my uncle growing up, he was from the backwoods of Mississippi. So every Saturday he would do laundry and we would watch old Westerns, and Maverick was one of them. So that's how I know what it is.
That's awesome.
That's
so awesome. Yeah.
So it sounds like you had this farm bar since you were growing up. Were your family surprised when you decided to go professional MMA and actually do this for a living?
No, I mean, you know what? When I had my first amateur fight, like I told you guys, I had told my family and I told myself, I was like, if I do good at this and I like it, I'm going to go be the best I can be. And I had always been a good athlete no matter what I did. So we knew I was going to get somewhere. I was really good at jiu-jitsu. I was doing very well. Like, I was 18 years old beating these women who had done 6-7 years of training. And I had been doing striking. My first fight, I had been doing striking 2 weeks when I entered that fight.
Oh, wow.
And so my coaches, you can't do that nowadays, just to be clear. Like there's a different level of MMA than what there was when I first started in it, even though it's only been about 8 years, but man, MMA has evolved, But at that level, it was like, okay, I can just like go in, take them down and submit them at the amateur level. Like that's all I got to do. And now it's like, well, a lot of them know wrestling, a lot of them know grappling, a lot of them know striking, where before like grappling girls just weren't that common. Like even now, grappling's way behind for females. There aren't as many as there are males that have the grappling background. So I had that going for me. And yeah, basically I told them all I was going to keep going, and my whole family supported me. My dad's been in my corner since that first fight. And continues to support me. And honestly, we were just waiting for a good opportunity to go pro. And I actually got a message on Facebook from Shannon Knapp, who is the owner of Invicta FC.
Yeah.
And that was my dream, was to get into Invicta. After a few pro fights, I thought maybe I'd get into it. And she messaged me and asked me if I wanted to make my pro debut on their show. And I was like,
sign me up
Yeah,
now.
dream
Sign
come
me up
true.
now.
yeah. And so the crazy part was I almost blocked it because I thought it was scam. Like, who messages on Facebook, that's like a president. And I was in the middle of a break for waitressing. Like, I ran back to the break room because I had heard my phone bleep. And I looked on it and I was like, this can't be the real Shannon Knapp. And I called my dad and I was like, what do you think? And I shared like the profile because my Facebook was really private at that time. And I was like, no, it looks legit. Like, it's her. I'm going to reply. And my dad's like, well, don't reply too, like, excited.
We got to negotiate a contract.
Exactly. But man, I loved it. And like I said, at that time, I was waitressing at Cracker Barrel. I waitressed for them for 5 years throughout my entire amateur career, and then into my pro career. When I was out at ODU, actually, is when I finally stopped waitressing, started working at a UFC gym instead and teaching private lessons, and also working as a teaching assistant for ODU. I went to different gyms, but it's never been like a I'm leaving my coach kind of thing. It's been a opportunity seeking. Like in Missouri is where I started, but they didn't have UFC caliber, I like to say, but we're amazing coaches. I learned so much there, got so far, and I'm sure I would have learned even more. But then I had the opportunity to go out to Virginia for college and stuff, and I have my opinions about out there. There was a little bit of toxic environment, but still learned a ton out there. I learned a lot for my striking, especially with the Muay Thai. I didn't have any striking hardly when I was at the beginning of my stage. If anybody watches my first 4 pro fights, you're just like, who is that? Like, I'm not recognizable. Like, I go in there, I'm just seeking a takedown and to submit them. And then I finally started working on my striking. By the time I went to the Phoenix Series tournament, I was a pretty good striker. I was still significantly better in my grappling. And then since being in the UFC, I feel like now I'm very well rounded. I would say my striking's almost as good as my grappling.
Yeah, definitely. And it's cool that you stayed loyal to going back to that. One of the things that I noticed with a lot of fighters, especially, is and I'm not going to call names, but some of them, they switch up teams because they can't take an internal look. And it's kind of like what you said about ego. A lot of times you get guys, females, males, whatever the case may be, that can't internalize and say, hey, I need to change some of the things about what I'm doing. And so therefore they put it on the coach, and then they switch teams, and then it's the same thing. And then
it happens again.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then they switch teams again. No, I am huge. I'd say that's the biggest reason I love MMA, is because it's such an individualized sport. Like, yes, the team is behind you. They get a lot of the credit. But listen, if I lose in there, I lost. If I win in there, I win. And I've always told my coaches, if I win, I share the responsibility. If I lose, it's all me. At the end of the day, I'm the one that went in there and lost, whether there's things we can improve or not. And I love it. My whole life, I've always been the one that's give me the ball. I want the ball. I want the one running down the court, And I think that's why, a lot of team sports as I was growing up, I just hated them. I love the sports themselves, but the drama, the whole, okay, this is so-and-so's cousin, so they're getting to play on the team first. I was like, no, I want something where I get the credibility, but I also get the failures. That way I can grow and improve myself. And I think that's just part of the drive. I found a lot of fighters like that, and I just don't think they can get pretty far for sure. But I don't think they get to the very top with that attitude.
No. And like you said, everything, when you get to this level, there's a lot of people that are good athletes. There's a lot of people that are good with being mentally tough. But when you start getting to the level of the UFC, everybody is all of those things, and it's the ones that can internally look at themselves and make adjustments, teeter this and teeter that. Those are the ones that actually end up, one of the things we talked that I saw you talk about on another podcast is some of females depending on what their looks are and stuff like that. And even there, a lot of that stuff lasts for a while, but eventually when you have to put on in the octagon, it's exposed and people fizzle out. So
yeah, for sure. And for me, like I'm a Christian, and I don't want to go over those values anyway. And I feel like there's a lot of morality and values that just aren't there nowadays. And I try not to cross those boundaries, which is a big thing as well. But yeah, I agree. I think it's also when you become so focused on the material aspect or OnlyFans or whatever the hell they're doing out there now, it's like you can only go so far with that. Like, you've got to be putting in the work too. And even if you have both those things and you put in the work and you do win and you still have that, like at the end of the day, like where's that getting you long term? Like at the end of your life, like when you have kids and other people, like that's not a good role model. I don't think there's a single dad on this planet that would want their daughter doing that, and I see it so many times. It's outrageous to me. And like for me, having a very strong father figure and being close with him, like, man, he freaks out when I'm weighing in a bathing suit.
No, I get it, and I agree. It's we've gotten away from the sport sometimes, and people make it this spectacle, which I'm an old school, and maybe it's the Alabama in me, but I have old school values and things, and it's whatever people choose to do, that's on them. I wouldn't necessarily do it, but to each their own.
It's like, I guess if you can make a living on it and not have to work and everything, like if you want to do that, go for it. I just think it counteracts other things. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Like there's always going to be a downside to whatever you choose to do. And I guess my downside is not having a passive income by taking a few pictures.
Just making pickles and honey.
Yeah, making pickles and working my butt off to make that happen. I probably get paid way less than them for doing it.
So the UFC threw you a curveball, changing out your fight. You were originally supposed to fight Tracy. They switched that up. She's going to fight Rose. When you first heard all of that, what was going through your mind?
Listen, I have such a long story with that, and there's so much more than the media even knows happened. I don't know what all I can say as far as details, but let's just say there was a lot of negotiating between Tracy, and they weren't sure if that was even going to happen. So then I got asked by Rose's coach, like, would I fight Rose? We've been training together like every single sparring since the beginning of camp. And I was like, sure, like I would love a main event, and this opportunity. And so they were negotiating back and forth with Tracy, and I guess it made it happen. But my name was thrown in there. It was really weird for a few days because we weren't training with each other, and everybody was like, I don't like this.
Right.
But we were like, listen, I'll do it. Like, pay me a little more if we're doing 5 rounds and we're good. Like, let's go. But there was that. Then my opponent, I got offered her, and I was like, sure, like I'll take anyone, even though I want a top 15. I want somebody ranked so I can start moving up. Then when Jasmine's opponent fell through, I got asked if I'd fight Jasmine on the week notice. And I'm just like, this is crazy. And I just got done just tech sparring with her, just moving, because she was like a week. Let's see, she fights this weekend, so it would have been like 10 days out. So we weren't going hard, but light work. And I was like, this is so ridiculous. Like, it's been 2 weeks of switching opponents and not knowing who
and
I'm
people
fighting.
that you, and even bigger than that, people that you've been training with. That would be kind of weird.
I know, it's a little weird, but at the same time, it's like, man,
a
like,
business.
It's part of it. Like, I'll be your friend after, I'll be your friend before, but in the cage, it's business. I'm going to try to whoop your ass, and you're going to try to whoop mine. And then as long as they were good, I was going to be good. And they were the ones that asked me. So I figured, what the heck, And the Jasmine thing, I basically was like, listen, I've already paid for flights to Vegas. I've already paid Airbnb. I have to pay taxes in Denver that I don't have to pay in Texas. Like, if you guys want to Vegas, I was like, if you guys want me to fight on that card, you can pay me a little more to at least cover my extra expenses and we'll make it happen. They were like, no. And I was like, well, then I'll stick with my same opponent.
Lots of behind the scenes stuff that no one knows about too. Like this is all within a 2 weeks notice, like you said, and you're prepping for someone before.
These decisions, like there'll be 5 days. Social media is always lying to you guys. Like the whole that Rose and Tracy were fighting, they didn't even know about it. They hadn't even called Rose when that got announced on social media. Wow. And I got called first. I was the first one to find out because my fight was off and they called me to tell me. And meanwhile, I'm like training with, like, it was 10 minutes after sparring with her. And I was like, guys, why didn't you tell me you took my opponent? Like, what the heck? And then Pat Barry was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh.
Did you not see Instagram?
Yeah, and he was like, what the hell? I haven't even got a call. So there's so much behind the scenes of politics and people leaking information that's not true or is true but hasn't been announced yet. Like so much stuff. Wow. Like the Dion Barbosa, I have no clue how that got out there because I didn't even know yet when she got offered to me as an opponent. And nothing was signed for like a week until I posted about it. So I was like, man, this is all chaos. But yeah, it's so much behind the scenes and a lot of people don't understand like how it works. They're like, why don't you fight more? And I'm like, well, I wish I had the decision to fight every 2 weeks. That would be I would make financially,
it would make all the answers.
Yeah. So when they're like, oh, so-and-so is inactive or so-and-so's this, I'm like, well, yeah, there are some people that just say no a lot, but a lot of us, like we try to be. There's just a lot of people on the roster and the matchmakers decide when we fight. Sometimes we get sick, sometimes we get hurt. So it's always funny hearing the different perspectives from fans where they just have no idea, like no idea whatsoever.
Zero. And most of the stuff that you hear is false. And it's like, what? You know, it's funny. I told you I manage RDA. And one of the things that he talks about, he'll do a tweet or whatever, and then he'll just put his phone down. I'm like, bro, how do you ignore all of these? He was like, dude, I put it on do not disturb, and I just put the phone down. And whenever I get ready to check it, I go check it. And if not, I don't. I'm like, okay.
And I probably focus on it a little too much. Definitely at the beginning of my career, I feel like it is harder for the women just because there's so much more scrutiny about looks, about anything we say. Like, it's so silly. But yeah, the first couple fights, man, I'd be so upset after every fight because of the mean things that are said out there. And even if it's only like 10%, which when you lose, it's more like 40 to 60%, you know, it's like, man, people are
savage. They are. Yeah. I tell people all the time, MMA Twitter is the most aggressive.
No, Reddit.
Reddit's worse.
So much worse because it's so anonymous and they just do anything on Reddit. I'll tell kind of a funny story. After I fought Liana Jojua, right?
Yeah.
And I beat her, they made a whole Georgian Reddit page, like aligned for me as like, is Miranda Maverick transgender, and had like all these zoomed in photos, all kinds of stuff. People commenting, got shared around the world. It was insane. And I was just like, wow. And you know, this is my first UFC fight, so I'm just like at home like
do I want to do this again?
Muscles, like, sheesh.
It's funny because we just talked about creating a Reddit and
it's a lot.
I can't do.
There's so much.
Well, because we were trying to look for different ways to kind of get the podcast out, and as it gains more traction and whatever. And so our producer, he was like, hey, you really need to create a Reddit. And I was like, okay, well, I've seen it pop up or whatever. So I asked Albert, and I'm kind of a boomer. And I was like, well, what's up with Reddit? He was like, dude, it's savage on there.
There's so much on there. Like, you can get lost in it's Twitter on steroids.
It's like a great outlet, but it's also a lot of misinformation and a lot of bad stuff on there too. But you can learn a lot too. Like, if I needed help on homework about a subject, you go on like one of the history Reddit links, and it's just like, wow, you can find out a lot of information. But then there's the other bad side of it when it's about I don't know, like media stuff or celebrities and stuff like that. And it's just like, man, these people are crazy, like nutso.
Crazy. So let me ask you a question. How was it? different because these opponents, I know both of them stylistically. How is it different? How big of a curveball was it for you to switch stylistically, or were you just kind of ready for whatever?
Man, I was ready for whatever. I always tell people I don't train for a certain opponent. Always, I train to fight the best person in the world. I train to fight Alexa Grasso. I train to fight Valentina. I don't train to fight Tracy. I don't train to fight Rose. I don't train to fight any of the others. I'm trying to be the best in the world. So why not make that my standard? And we were talking about like self-scrutiny earlier. When I go and watch their fights, I also go and watch my fights. Every single time I fight, I go back and watch my own footage, and I go and watch my opponent's footage. And that way I can see, like, what are they seeing when they watch Miranda Maverick fight? Like, what weaknesses are they seeing? What do they think they can do? And I'm like, man, it's hit or miss, because some fights it looks like I can't grapple at all. And I'm noting the Erin Blanchfield one. But then you watch her fight against others, and it's like, oh, I'm able to get up and get out. That's surprising against Erin. But then I also have good striking against like Andrea and stuff. So I always go on there and I'm like, but I could see this and I could see this hole in myself. And then I go and look at my opponent and I kind of do the same thing to them. So with Tracy, she's well-rounded. She was good, but I was ready for anything facing her. And I don't think Dion brings anything new into the arena than Tracy did. I don't even think she's as good as Tracy at all. I don't think she's near my level. And I want to just plan on showing that on July 20th, is just go in there and basically maul her in every single area wherever I take it. So I know she has that judo background. I know she's a decent grappler, decent striker. Seemed to have crap cardio this last time.
Oh, I was gonna say,
That's
look,
what you were gonna say.
you took the words right out of my mouth. I was gonna say definitely not cardio.
No, but that can improve pretty easily, right?
Yeah.
So that's hard to judge somebody on that.
Yeah, and you don't really know what goes behind with the cardio because with weight cuts it throws balances off, it throws hormone levels. There's so many different things. It's funny because I know it kind of from a science standpoint with that, and not that, don't let the mullet fool you. I know a little bit. So like, I know how those things throw off, whereas most people will see a fight and they're like, oh, this, and this. And I'm like, well, there's a lot of complexities into it, but I do agree, and not to gas you up, I do agree that you are a complete fighter, and I do think you're far above class-wise when it comes to fighting. I think you will maul her. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Co-signing. Boom.
So
go in there, get a payday, and then hopefully get a ranked opponent after that.
Let's go.
we're rooting for you. We're rooting for you for sure.
Let's go.
We were both curious, just because you have so many different ventures. You're an aspiring entrepreneur, a very successful one. How do you balance your personal life with being a professional MMA fighter in the UFC, with Prowler Pickles, your masterpieces, your Hive with Honey? How do you do that?
Man, I would get called crazy by just about every human in the world with the way my lifestyle is. I have one of those minds that will not shut off no matter what time of the day it is, it seems like. And I'm always like, I could do this opportunity. Like, like I said, I'm a Christian. I see every opportunity as a blessing. And I'm like, man, I don't want to miss out on an opportunity that might change my life or the life of my family. Like, the whole purpose of fighting to me is a means to an end. I'm not fighting to be world champion. I'm not fighting for clout or even glory. I'm fighting so that I can pursue a lifestyle for my family, to where I can be at home one day, to where I don't have to work a 9 to 5, to where I can set myself and my family up to where nobody's miserable one of these days. And so for me, like, I go in there with, I guess, everything on my shoulders, but at the same time, I have other avenues in life. I have my Hershey job I work full time for, if you didn't know that. So I work as a statistician full time for Hershey, and it's a good job. Like, most people would see that as a lifelong career and go, why do you even fight? And I'm like, because I can, because it's a great opportunity to pursue my dreams that much faster. And then the pickle and the honey and stuff, I'm like, that's a business I can pass on to someone else in my family and get passive income someday, or to my kids or whatever else. And it's also something I can stay at home and do, which is really nice. And so I just do that every day, all the time. I don't have a social life. I don't go out and goof off. I just keep a schedule. I literally have what I call my old lady planner. It's like a write down planner, not on my phone. And I write every 30 minutes of the day exactly what I'm going to do, and try my best not to overlap them,
Well, number one, that's awesome. Number two, that is definitely say you grew up on a ranch without saying you grew up on a ranch. That's it. When you're from the country in the backwoods, you're just wired different. I'm kind of similar the same way. I can't sit still. I have to be doing something. I have 5 kids, and then I run a real estate business as well as I own MMA fighter management company. So similar to, I'm not as good with the planner. Albert's the one who plans and just tells me what to do. But same thing. Yeah, definitely. It goes back to that upbringing.
I definitely think so. I was raised a certain way, definitely with the hard work and keeping faith and passions at the core. And like my little brother, I think is another good example. And my sister's starting to be too. You know, she has her own resin business she started and has her job and went to school and got that done. Even tried MMA, but she decided that wasn't for her. My brother's 21 and he has his own excavation business. So anybody listening, if you're in Missouri, hit up Top Gun Excavation LLC. But he went right out of high school, didn't want anything to do with school anymore. He was homeschooled and then did high school public, did wrestling and got second in state after only wrestling for 3 years. So that's pretty impressive.
That's really impressive.
Yeah. So he's an athlete too, a heck of an athlete. And so was my sister. She placed in state 3 years out of the 4 that she wrestled. Wow. So I honestly think they're both better athletes than me. Like they had longer that they were in the sport, you know, they had longer to pursue it. But they did not, they have decided not to. But my brother went straight out of high school, got his CDL, works for Coca-Cola full time, and also has his excavation business. So he's doing a lot too. We all try to push it, and none of us can still level up to my dad, who's pretty much changed his life around from where he grew up and the family he was with to what he's at now, and really tried the best he could to help us kids and set a good example. And now we're trying to pursue the same thing.
Well, I would definitely say proof is in the pudding. So the example that he set, whatever it was, it worked, because hearing that was like, wow, my mind blowing, just knowing you and what you have going on, but seeing your siblings as well, that just shows whatever he did the right thing.
For sure. Sure. My parents did great and tried their best to set a good example. But like you said, I think it is all based in the raising and shows every day.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I know, like you said before, MMA is a grueling sport. You have so much. So you kind of mentioned a little bit what motivates you down the line. Is this something that you see yourself doing like so long term that you'd want to eventually want to coach in and stuff like that too? I know you're still like trying to do all that right now.
Yeah, I have zero interest in coaching. I have people now that are like, will you coach me? Will you corner me? And I'm just like, unless you're my sister, I'm not coaching you. Like, and it just kind of started with that. One, I don't handle it very well. I get very emotionally invested. Like, I love hard, right? So it's like my sister, when she was fighting, like I trained with her all the time. I coached her. I did the private lessons with her, all of it. And the few times I was in her corner, I was a mess. Like I could handle it as far as the coaching and stuff during it, but by the end of every fight, I'm the one crying. She's totally fine. Oh and she's just like, "Why are you crying? I won." And I'm like, "I don't know."
I'm the same way. I'm very emotional the same way. And so people ask like, "Oh, are you going to coach your kids?" My son's fixing to start training, and they're like, "Oh, are you going to coach?" No, couldn't do it. Wouldn't do it. I couldn't.
I don't know. I think I could do it for my family members, but anyone else, like I'm not putting myself through that torture, like there's no reason to. It's like, I will invest in these, couple of muscles and that's it. But yeah, outside of fighting, like I would love to commentate. I've commentated for a lot of different smaller promotions and would love to do that on a bigger scale. I think I talk well. I analyze the fights well. Maybe that's the statistics mindset. I don't know.
True.
That would be a career that's related to MMA that I would be happy to do. But aside from that, man, I just want to have control of my time one of these days. I don't plan on being in the sport for too much longer. Of course, a few years. I'm not going to be a 40-year-old fighting in the UFC. It's not going to happen. I want to pursue my dreams, get my investments put together in life and be done. I want to have a family. I want to be a healthy mother one day.
Yeah.
Blind. I don't want to have everything broken down and no joints working. I'm 27, just turned 27, and I already have had 2 retina surgeries, been told I shouldn't fight anymore from that, which is scary scary thing every time I walk into the cage. I've already had one scary experience with it when I fought Jasmine, actually, and it's like, it's not worth it. None of these fights are worth it. None of the money that comes from it if I end up blind, you know? So at the end of the day, I have to think about that and how that would impact others if I get majorly hurt. And I've got to take that into consideration every single time that I say yes to a fight.
Yeah.
That's crucial. That's crucial. I know you tell me about Huff all the time, and just you're putting your body at risk every single moment that you're in the cage, and all that
Yeah.
adrenaline rush is amazing. And yeah, you get the fame, you get everything else, but you only get one chance at this, you know. And so it seems like you have a bigger plan in mind. So with that going said, what is like the biggest lesson that you've learned personally since turning pro?
And don't take anything for granted, you know. Kind of going along, I wouldn't even say it has to do with pro, but it has to do with the fight experience in general. And I'll go back to the retina thing. The most impactful, I would say, bad, good, whatever, day of my life was when I was sitting at the eye doctor one day out, I guess technically two, because it was a Thursday night before my UFC debut, being told I couldn't fight. So if you guys look that up, on June 20th, I believe it was, of 2020, that's when I got in the UFC on a 5-day notice. Had to get my medicals ASAP. They flew me to Vegas that day, you know, and we're like, you can just get the medicals done in Vegas. I was like, no problem. Flew from Norfolk, Virginia to Vegas, go to this eye doctor, and he was like, ooh, I don't know. I just got out of school. I'm going to have to send you to like a retina specialist because I'm not sure if what I'm seeing is completely bad, but it doesn't look good. And I was like, okay. And so they sent me Thursday, the next day, a Thursday afternoon. I'm cutting weight. I'm down to 128 already. Like, I only had a couple pounds to go. I'm sitting there stressed, but I wasn't even worried. I was like, yeah, I got like eye issues as far as I wear glasses, you know, but like nothing else that I noticed.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and it's this lady who's actually a renowned like retina specialist, and she's like, gets done looking at my eyes, and she does the little thing, and I was like, what does that mean? And I'm getting a little freaked out. I'm like, what are you seeing, you know? And she's like, I can't let you fight. And I was like, what do you mean you can't let me fight? And this is the day before my UFC debut, like the day I've worked 6 years of my life. Every single day,
blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, I don't even know if we can let you leave to go home. We have to do emergency retina surgery on both eyes. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she told me and showed me the pictures, and I had both my retinas torn in my periphery, and she told me to focus on my periphery for a minute. And so I did, and I could see like flashes of light and like bugs back there. And basically I was going to have a detached retina in both eyes, like go blind, if I didn't get it taken care of ASAP. I decided to still fly back. I was like, forget it. I'm not going to stay in freaking Vegas. I didn't have the money to pay, you know, they didn't even pay me for the fight or show money or anything.
Yeah.
They just flew me back home, and I was like, screw it, I can't afford to stay here. You know, I'm still on waitressing money. I get back and did emergency surgery on June 25th, I believe, like 5 days later. And then on July 1st, my birthday. So I turned 22, I believe it was, on my eye surgery, my second one. And my mom flew out for my first one. My dad flew out for my second. And the crazy story is, like, that's kind of the reason that me and my husband are together. I got in the UFC 3 days after we met and had our first date, which is insane. He didn't even like know what MMA was. And then I got back from my retina surgery, and he would come over every day and give me my eye drops and help out with everything because I was blind. You know, I couldn't do anything. And I was like, wow, like this guy's pretty solid. You know, he's coming over here and taking care of me without anything back. So this is awesome.
And didn't even know you were soon to be a UFC star.
Right. No, didn't have any idea. He didn't even know what that meant, you know. When I met him, he was like, MMA. And I was like, yeah, like, you know, I threw out the popular names that everybody always tells me. I'm like, Ronda Rousey, Conor McGregor, and he's like, I don't know, maybe I've seen it on a commercial before. Like, this is weird. Like, you're this military big buff dude, you don't even know what MMA is. Like, I don't really pay attention to that stuff. And I was like, okay.
Okay. So we want to kind of lighten things up a little bit. We're going to have rapid fire questions.
All right.
Say whatever pops into your mind first. You are on you are on the clock. And who was your favorite fighter growing up?
GSP.
Ooh,
yeah,
that's a good one. What is your favorite travel destination?
Maybe St. Lucia. That's what I was looking for my honeymoon.
I wanna
Just
go
like
there.
Mediterranean island down there. Just not as well known.
Sweet. What is your biggest pet peeve?
Probably getting poked, like when people poke my shoulder to get my attention. I have a name. Don't forget that.
Like, give me my personal space.
Yeah, I have to have it.
Yeah.
What is your favorite cheat meal?
Any kind of sweets. I love cookie dough. I love ice cream. I know that's not a meal, but I'll make it a meal when I
That's southern. That's southern genetics. That's southern genetics. I am the same way. We are cut from the same cloth. What is your
sugar weakness.
Yes, exactly.
Don't bring it in the house.
No. What is your hidden talent?
Oh man, I don't know if it's hidden. We just talked about it. Probably the drawing is the most hidden. Most people don't know about it.
What is your favorite song?
Oh man, Don't Stop Believing. Maybe.
Oh, that's
yeah.
a good one.
I threw it out there. That was way too fast. That's not right. But I don't remember what it is. It's like the Star Trek theme song. It's like Faith of the Heart. If you guys have ever heard it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
What's going to be your walkout song on the 20th?
Oh,
Have
the
you
Top
picked-
Gun theme. It always is.
Oh,
Yeah.
Maverick.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Who is your
Like, it's Only Jesus from Casting Crowns being it, and it just didn't get the crowd roar. And I'm like, that's what I love, but I can always listen to that walking out there while the others playing. So it's really good.
You can play it in your mind while they pay attention to the
Yeah.
rest.
Exactly.
What's your favorite TV show or movie?
Man. Movie. I used to have such good answers to these. I'm just gonna say The Fugitive, the old school one.
Okay, that's a good one.
I love that movie.
Okay.
All right.
TV show actually might be Cheyenne. So if you guys ever watched that Western growing up, I freaking loved Cheyenne.
Did not.
He did.
I
I,
did
was
not.
gonna say. I know he didn't. I did. It was on my list. So I guess we got the Southern genetics. We got all the good westerns now.
I also had a dad who was like raised by his grandparents, so I feel like I'm always a generation or two behind. You know?
Old soul. There's nothing wrong with that. Last one. If there was a zombie invasion, what one UFC fighter would you want on your team?
Probably Francis Ngannou.
Oh,
I
that's
guess
a
he's
good
not
one.
a UFC fighter
It's still-
anymore, but kind of.
Yeah,
Dude,
definitely.
he's
He's a big
huge.
guy.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah, I'm definitely, he would be on my team too. So, all right, we got one last question. We know you got a lot of stuff going on, so we don't want to hold you up all day. If you need time to think about this one, take your time. If
Okay.
today was your last day, what is the one thing that you would want Miranda to be remembered for?
Man, making a positive impact on anyone that I ran into, whether it be in a critical way or a good, just happy feelings way. I always say that. I'm like, I want to be remembered as bringing positive influence and improvement into people's lives.
Well, I can say we've known each other, 53 minutes, and already going through your story and kind of hearing, growing up on the farm, / ranch, and learning those values, the respect I have for your dad. I haven't even met him yet, and just knowing the example that he passed down to you and your siblings, and you pushing through everything and being such a positive influence and setting up generational wealth with businesses and stuff like that. It's amazing. So
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
If you ever want to have him on, I've had him interviewed a couple times, and he does better.
Oh,
than
that would be
I do.
epic.
I
He's just an amazing guy.
definitely post fight, I definitely would
That's
want,
right.
and we just talked about earlier about having two people on at one time. I think that
Okay.
would be
That'd be
epic
cool.
to have you and him on there and have a round
That would be awesome.
session. I think
Yeah.
it would be too.
Well,
I
So,
love that.
Well, especially
So
for
fun fact about him, and it's so funny. Sorry to interrupt.
no.
It's so funny. When I go to the UFC, it's never "Hi, Miranda." Literally, it's the first questions from the security guards, from the cutmen, all that. They're like, "Where's your dad?" And I'm like, wow, guys. I'm like, he's not here yet, and they're like, "Oh."
you're like, I'm here though.
Hi.
I love it. I feel like that'd be really cool for a lot of our younger viewers too, because since it's getting more popular, MMA, jiu-jitsu, all that stuff, just to kind of get more perspective on like what that means to have like a strong father figure and what that really
Yeah.
looks like for people wanting to get into the sport a little bit more to get more perspective. That'd be cool.
And I think it
For
would
sure. And to go ahead.
I think it would be really cool to be able to put that out into the universe. I think a lot of things we see, like we talked about on Reddit, Twitter, all of these things, not just to do with fighting, but in life, is we see a lot of negativity and we see a lot of negative energy and people saying what you should do. And, you know, oh, I would have done this. Actually seeing somebody who had a positive impact and a positive influence to their children,
Sure.
I think that would be massive. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I think as men as well, you know, we can get in not politics, but just society for a second. Like, I feel like there's been an attack on men for years, you know, and I think especially like middle-aged men, fathers, basically the whole toxic masculinity, whatever made up words they want to call it nowadays. And it's like, man, my dad is the man's man, you know. I've heard people describe him as a mix between like John Wayne and Andy Griffith, you know.
Oh, wow.
And he can be gruff, but he's also like the sweetest person you'll ever meet, kind of thing. And for me, it's like, and thank goodness I had so many great men in my life, like you know, my husband, my brother, my dad, like they're all great people. And I would say that men have had a more positive influence on my life times 10 than women have had overall. When you look at anyone that I've met, whether it be teachers, coaches, just people I run into, my dad, like people that I know through him, all kinds of stuff like that. And it's like, man, they're what makes the country strong. They're what makes their family strong, what brings people to faith usually. Like, respect that, have a level of respect for it. And I know that I definitely do, and I appreciate it, and try to set a good example for myself and for other women, whether it be through Bible studies or through just friends and talking to little girls or whatever else it is. Have respect for everybody in the society, but understand the roles that each person plays.
Wow.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's what we need. We need more strong men, more strong fathers, and we just want to create a more cohesive unit in our community. I feel like that's been lacking right now. So that'd be awesome to have him on.
Definitely.
For sure.
Speaking of, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to come on. I'll be honest with you, you touched me. You know, I was a fan, but hearing this and hearing your story really touched me, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. And we're signing off. We will be with you in a few weeks. You might not hear the accent from afar, but know that it'll be screaming for you.
All right, perfect. Yeah, you guys go tune in July 20th. I'm excited for it.
I will be there. Have a good one.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
You guys have a good night.
You too.